I always thought I was a good husband. My name is Alex and I've been married to Jessica for 5 years. We had a great relationship, or so I thought. We met in college and everything seemed perfect. Laughter, inside jokes, and a seemingly unbreakable bond. But over the last few months I noticed changes in her. Little things at first. She was more irritable, often distracted during conversations, and she started taking late-night calls under the guise of work. I brushed it off as stress, but in the back of my mind something felt off. One evening I returned home early from work. I was excited to surprise her with a spontaneous dinner. As I entered our apartment, I noticed her phone buzzing on the kitchen counter. It was face up, and the name on the screen was Jake. It caught my attention immediately. Jessica often mentioned a coworker named Jake, but I never thought much about him. I picked up the phone and saw a string of messages between them, flirty banter that made my stomach drop. "Can't wait to see you tonight," one read. Another said, "You always know how to make me feel special." I felt my heart race. I put the phone down and tried to calm myself. Maybe it was all innocent, a misunderstanding. But that didn't change the fact that there was a name I didn't recognize popping up in our lives. After she got home, the tension was palpable and I had to know more. I casually asked about her day, trying to gauge if she'd mentioned Jake. Surprisingly, she didn't. In fact, when I brought up the new project she was working on with him, she rolled her eyes and said, "You know how he is, always trying to be the hero." The way she said it felt rehearsed, like she had been preparing for a moment like this. As weeks passed, the signs only got worse. She started going out more often, claiming it was for girls' nights or late meetings. I even had friends mention seeing her out at bars with a group that included Jake. The gut feeling grew stronger and I began to suspect the worst, but I loved her. I wanted to believe she wouldn't cheat, that she wouldn't betray what we had built together. Then came the night that changed everything. I was scrolling through our wedding guestbook when I noticed something odd. I flipped through the pages and there it was, his name, written in bold letters with a phone number. My heart sank. The realization hit me hard. She had invited him to our wedding, a moment that was supposed to be sacred for just the two of us. I couldn't breathe. I felt this overwhelming rush of anger and confusion. She had acted like she didn't know him, but his name was right there, staring me in the face. I confronted Jessica that night. I didn't hold back. I demanded to know who Jake was and why his name was in our guest book. Her reaction was startling. She turned defensive, insisting that it was nothing. "He's just a coworker, Alex. You're being ridiculous." But I could see the fear in her eyes the way she looked anywhere but at me. I felt a whirlwind of emotions: betrayal, anger, disbelief. Was this the woman I married? I wanted to shake her, scream at her, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. She made a mess of our lives, and here she was, acting like it was no big deal. I needed answers, not excuses. I decided to press further. "Jessica, how could you bring someone like him into our life, let alone our wedding?" I felt tears sting my eyes, a mixture of rage and sorrow. She finally broke down, admitting she had been spending time with him, hanging out after work. "It's not what you think," she shouted, but I could see the guilt etched on her face. Her lies felt like daggers piercing my heart. The confrontation left me feeling hollow. I was left with the harsh reality of the situation. I had loved this woman blindly, and she had shattered my trust. I couldn't help but wonder if I had seen the signs, if I had been too naive to realize what was happening right under my nose. I spent the next few days in a haze of emotions. I went from anger to sadness, questioning everything about our relationship, about who we were as a couple. I felt lost, like everything that had once defined my happiness had crumbled. But I knew I had to make a decision. As I sat alone in our living room, surrounded by memories of better times, I weighed my options. Should I fight for my marriage or walk away? The thought of confronting Jessica again loomed over me, but deep down I knew it was time to face the music, to figure out what I truly wanted from this shattered relationship. With so much on my mind, I finally took a deep breath and resolved to figure out my next step. I would confront Jessica one last time, and that meeting would determine the fate of our marriage. I had to be ready for anything, including the truth I had been dreading. The day of my confrontation with Jessica weighed heavily on me. I felt like a soldier preparing for battle, mentally rehearsing what I would say and how I would respond to her inevitable denials. The tension in our apartment was palpable. Even the walls seemed to hold their breath in anticipation. I spent the morning pacing back and forth, trying to find the right words to express the whirlwind of emotions swirling inside me. When Jessica finally came home, the clock struck 6. She walked in, her usual bright smile replaced by a cautious expression as she sensed the seriousness in the air. "Hey, Alex, you okay?" she asked, a hint of worry in her voice. I took a deep breath, my heart pounding in my chest. "No, I'm not okay, we need to talk." I motioned for her to sit on the couch. The light in the living room felt harsh, illuminating the distance that had grown between us. She sat down, her eyes darting nervously. "What's going on?" I didn't waste time. "I found your wedding guest book, Jessica. I saw Jake's name and number in it. Why the hell is he in our guest book?" Her face paled. In that instant, I could see the walls she had built around herself start to crack. "Alex, it's not what you think," she stammered, her voice trembling. That phrase felt like a trigger. "Then tell me what I'm supposed to think. You've been lying to me, and I can't just pretend everything is fine anymore." I felt the heat rising in my chest as anger surged through me again. She tried to gather her thoughts, but it was clear she was struggling. "Jake is just a friend from work. We've been working late on a project together. It's nothing more than that." "But you brought him to our wedding." I shot back, unable to mask the pain in my voice. "Why would you invite someone you barely know to the most important day of our lives?" I could see her panic rising. "I didn't think it would matter. We were friends, and I didn't think you'd care." "Of course it matters. You've been acting differently for months, Jessica. You think I haven't noticed?" My voice was rising, but I had to keep my composure. The hurt was overwhelming, and I needed to channel that into something productive. She dropped her gaze, her voice barely a whisper. "I didn't mean for it to happen, Alex. I never wanted to hurt you." "Then what happened? How did it get to this point?" I demanded, my heart racing. I wanted to understand, but I also wanted to hurt her the way she had hurt me. She hesitated, biting her lip as if weighing her options. "I don't know. I guess it was just easy to talk to him. He listens, and you've been so busy with work." I felt alone. Her admission hit me like a slap in the face. "So you found comfort in another man, that's your excuse?" "No, it wasn't supposed to be like that. It just happened," she pleaded, her eyes welling with tears. "We kissed a few times, but I swear I never meant for it to go this far. I love you, Alex. You have to believe me." Her words rang hollow. I felt like I was standing on shaky ground, the foundation of our marriage crumbling beneath me. "How can I believe anything you say right now? You've lied to me for months." I was scared. "I didn't want to lose you, and I didn't know how to tell you," she cried. "Scared? Scared of what? That I would be angry? You've destroyed my trust." I shouted, overwhelmed by a mix of betrayal and heartbreak. As she sobbed, I couldn't help but feel a flicker of sympathy for her. But that sympathy was overshadowed by the overwhelming betrayal I felt. I needed to take control of this situation, to set boundaries, make decisions. "Jessica, I need space," I said finally, my voice trembling with emotion. "I can't process this right now. I do even know if I can forgive you." Her face fell and she nodded slowly, the weight of her actions finally sinking in. "I understand," she whispered. "I'll give you space." I watched as she left the room, feeling the air grow heavier with unspoken words. I sank into the couch, running my hands through my hair, feeling the chaos in my mind. How had it come to this? How had the woman I loved become someone I barely recognized? The next few days were a blur of emotions. I moved through the motions of life, work, eating, sleeping, while struggling to process the enormity of what had happened. I felt lost in a storm of confusion. The pain was like a vice around my heart, squeezing tighter every time I thought about her betrayal. Friends began to notice my change in demeanor. I was distant, snapping at the smallest things, hiding behind a mask of normalcy. One evening, I met up with my best friend, Mark, at our usual bar. He could see right through me. "What's going on, man? You look like you've seen a ghost." I took a deep breath, deciding I needed to share what had happened. "Jessica cheated on me, Mark. She's been seeing someone from work, and I found out she invited him to our wedding." His expression turned serious. "Damn, Alex, I'm so sorry. Are you okay?" "I don't know. I feel like I'm in a nightmare that I can't wake up from," I admitted, taking a sip of my drink. I'm so angry, but I'm also heartbroken. I don't even know what to do next. Mark leaned in closer, his voice firm. You need to figure out what you want, man. Do you think you can ever trust her again? Because if not, it might be time to move on. His words lingered in my mind as I drove home that night. Part of me still loved Jessica, but another part was tired of the lies. I knew I had to make a decision soon. I couldn't let myself drown in this sea of uncertainty. As I lay in bed, I replayed our confrontation, trying to piece together my feelings. Did I want to forgive her? Could I? The questions swirled in my head like a storm, and for the first time I felt the urge to take control of my life, to decide my own fate. The next morning I sat down to write out my thoughts, to clarify what I truly wanted. I needed a plan, a resolution, and it was time to act. I woke up the next morning with an unusual clarity. The confusion and heartache still weighed heavily on me, but I felt a new sense of determination. I grabbed a notebook and started writing down my feelings, my expectations, and the reality of my marriage. I needed to organize my thoughts before I had any further conversations with Jessica. The first thing I did was list everything I loved about our relationship. There were so many good memories, trips we had taken together, the way she laughed at my terrible jokes, the little things we did for each other that made our daily lives special. But then I flipped the page and began to write everything that had gone wrong. The betrayal, the lies, the loneliness I felt as she drifted away from me. It was an eye-opening experience. After scribbling down my thoughts, I decided I needed to confront Jessica again, but this time with a plan. I was going to lay out my boundaries clearly, and I needed her to take me seriously. I wasn't going to let her manipulate the situation or dodge responsibility anymore. It was time for both of us to face the truth of our marriage. That evening, I asked Jessica to join me in the living room. She walked in cautiously, still holding onto the remnants of guilt that had haunted her since our last conversation. I could see the worry etched on her face, and I knew she was expecting me to lash out. But I was calm, I was prepared. Once she settled down on the couch, I took a deep breath and began. I've been thinking a lot about us and where we stand, Jessica. I need to be honest about how I feel and what I expect from you moving forward. Okay, she replied, her voice shaky. I'm listening. I started with the positives. I love you, you know that. I still hold on to the good memories we've made together. I watched her expression soften just a little. But the truth is, everything has changed. The trust is broken, and I don't think we can move forward without addressing the elephant in the room. She nodded, tears brimming in her eyes. I know I hurt you, and I wish I could take it back. I appreciate that, but wishing doesn't change what happened. I felt my voice steadying as I continued. I need you to understand that I can't just forgive and forget. Trust takes time to rebuild. If we want to work on this, I need to know you're committed to making it right. What do you mean? She asked, confusion mixed with fear shadowing her features. I need transparency. I want to know who you're with, what you're doing, and I need to meet Jake. If you're serious about this marriage, you won't hide anything from me. And if you can't do that, then we might need to consider a separation. The last words hung in the air like a heavy fog. Jessica looked shocked, as if the idea had never crossed her mind. You can't be serious. You want to meet him. Alex, he's just a coworker. It's not like that anymore. Then what's the problem? If you're telling the truth, it should be easy to introduce me. I felt a surge of frustration bubbling inside me. I need to see you are willing to fight for our marriage, not just say the words. She took a moment to compose herself, wiping away a stray tear. I promise I'll do whatever it takes to make this right. It was a mistake, and I regret it every single day. Then let's start fresh, I proposed, feeling a mix of hope and skepticism. But it has to be a clean slate. You need to cut ties with Jake completely. No more texting, no more late-night calls. If you want us to move forward, we have to build a new foundation based on honesty and commitment. Okay, I can do that, she replied, her voice stronger now. I'll talk to him and end it, I swear. Good, but I need time. This isn't something that will get fixed overnight, Jessica. I need space to figure out my feelings. I don't know if I can truly forgive you yet, but I'm willing to try. We talked late into the night, laying out the terms of our possible reconciliation. It felt both terrifying and liberating. I was taking control of the situation instead of letting my emotions dictate my actions. I realized that while I loved her, I couldn't ignore the gravity of the betrayal. Over the next few weeks, things were awkward but manageable. Jessica kept her promise to distance herself from Jake. She removed his number from her phone, and there were no more late-night calls that I could hear. It was as if she was trying to prove her commitment to our marriage. I too was trying to commit to the process of healing. I attended therapy sessions, something I had avoided for a long time, hoping to unpack my feelings and gain some clarity. It helped somewhat. I learned that feelings of betrayal can take a long time to process, and it was okay to feel hurt and angry. But as time passed, I realized my emotions were still in disarray. I felt like I was stuck in limbo, both wanting to forgive and struggling to forget. I often found myself questioning whether the love we had was enough to mend what had been broken. I had moments where I felt like I was making progress, only to be hit by waves of doubt. On one particularly tough evening, I was scrolling through social media and I came across a photo of Jessica and Jake at a company event. They both looked happy, laughing together. It felt like a punch to the gut. I couldn't shake the feeling of jealousy and sadness that washed over me. I didn't want to feel this way. I was trying to move forward, but seeing that image made me feel like I was back at square one. That night, I confronted Jessica once more. I saw a photo of you and Jake on social media. It's like I can't escape this. Her expression turned serious and she sighed. I'm sorry, Alex. I didn't want to hurt you. I thought we were moving past this. It's hard to move on when reminders keep cropping up. I felt defeated. I want to fight for us, but it's exhausting. I don't know how much longer I can do this. We ended the night on a somber note, and I felt the weight of uncertainty settle back over me. It was clear that while we were trying to rebuild, the scars of betrayal ran deep. I needed to figure out how to navigate the path ahead, whether to cling to hope or to make the painful decision to walk away for good. As I lay in bed, I reflected on everything that had happened. I wanted to believe in second chances, but trust was a fragile thing, and I was left wondering if it could ever truly be restored. As the days turned into weeks, I found myself caught in a cycle of hope and despair. The memories of Jessica's betrayal were like a ghost that lingered in the corners of my mind, refusing to let go. Each time I thought we were making progress, something would happen, a reminder, a fleeting thought, and I was back to questioning everything. Despite her assurances, I still felt the weight of uncertainty. Jessica tried her best to show me she was committed to fixing our relationship, but the scars of her infidelity were fresh, and I wasn't sure how to move forward. I often found myself staring at our wedding photo, wondering how I could have been so blind to the cracks that had formed. One evening, as I sat at my desk, I received a text from Jessica. Can we talk? I have something important to share. My heart raced. I knew this conversation could go either way. Part of me hoped she would tell me she had officially cut ties with Jake, while the other part feared she might confess to further indiscretions. When she came home, I could tell she was nervous. Her hands fidgeted with the hem of her shirt and her eyes darted around the room. I gestured for her to sit down, doing my best to keep my face neutral. What's going on? She took a deep breath and I could see the weight of her words pressing down on her. I talked to Jake today. I told him that I couldn't see him anymore and I meant it, but that's not what I wanted to talk about. My heart raced for a different reason now. What is it then? I think we need to go to couples therapy, she said, her voice steadying. I know that you're trying to forgive me, but I want us to have a safe space to talk about everything. I want us to heal together. The suggestion caught me off guard. I had been in therapy on my own, but I hadn't considered couples therapy. A part of me wanted to dismiss the idea, but another part recognized that we couldn't keep going in circles without addressing our issues more deeply. You really think it will help? I do, she replied earnestly. I think we need guidance to navigate through this. It's clear we both have a lot to unpack. I paused, letting her words sink in. Perhaps it was worth considering. Okay, I finally said. If you're serious about this, I'm willing to try. A relieved smile broke out on her face, and for a moment I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe this was a step in the right direction. We found a therapist who specialized in couples dealing with infidelity. Our first session was nerve-wracking. As we sat in the waiting room, I felt a mix of anticipation and dread. I didn't know what to expect, but I knew this was a pivotal moment for us. When we entered the therapist's office, I was struck by the calmness of the environment. Soft lighting, comfortable chairs, and the faint scent of lavender wafting through the air. I could feel the tension in the room as we settled into our seats. The therapist, Dr. Adams, introduced herself, and I was immediately drawn to her gentle demeanor. "Let's start by talking about what brought you both here today," Dr. Adams suggested, looking between us. I glanced at Jessica, and she nodded for me to go first. "I found out my wife was cheating on me," I said, my voice steadier than I expected. "I'm here because I want to understand how we got here and whether it's possible to rebuild our relationship." Jessica chimed in, her voice quavering. "I regret everything I did and I want to make amends. I love Alex and I want to fix this." Dr. Adams nodded, encouraging us to share more about our feelings. As the session progressed, I felt a mix of vulnerability and catharsis. We discussed the cracks in our relationship that led to Jessica's infidelity, the distance, the lack of communication, the feelings of isolation we both experienced. "What do you think you both need to feel secure in this relationship again?" Dr. Adams asked, her gaze steady. I looked at Jessica, my heart aching. "Trust. I need to feel like I can rely on her again. And I need to prove to him that I'm committed to making this work," Jessica added, her voice filled with determination. That session opened up a floodgate of conversation. We began to peel back the layers of our relationship, exploring our past, our fears, and our hopes for the future. But as the weeks went by, it became clear that healing wasn't going to be a straight path. The second session brought up a topic that seemed to linger like a shadow. "How do you both handle feelings of jealousy and insecurity?" Dr. Adams asked one day. I felt the air shift as I considered my response. "I think I still feel insecure when I think about Jake. I know he's part of my wife's past, but the thought of him still stings." Jessica's eyes flickered with empathy. "I get that. I can't undo what I did, but I want you to know I'm doing everything I can to make it right." Dr. Adams guided us through the conversation, encouraging us to express our feelings openly. It was challenging, but it felt good to articulate the hurt and anger I had been bottling up. But then another curveball hit me. During one session, we were discussing our communication styles, and Jessica mentioned that she had seen Jake one last time after we started therapy. "I didn't want to tell you because I thought it would set us back, but I ran into him at the coffee shop. We just talked. I swear it was nothing." My heart sank, and I felt the anger bubbling up inside me again. "You saw him after all this. Why didn't you tell me?" "I thought it would only hurt you more. I was trying to protect you," she pleaded. "Protect me? By keeping secrets? That's not how this works." I shot back, feeling the upheaval of emotion threaten to take control. Dr. Adams intervened, urging us to take a breath and refocus. "It's important to communicate openly, especially during the healing process. Holding on to secrets only breeds distrust." That session ended on a rough note, and I left feeling like we had taken 2 steps forward and 3 steps back. I was angry, hurt, and confused. I questioned whether this therapy was even worth it, wondering if Jessica's indiscretions were a sign that she wasn't fully committed to fixing our marriage. The following sessions were equally tumultuous. Each time we dove deeper, the feelings of betrayal resurfaced, and I struggled to reconcile my love for Jessica with the reality of her actions. It was hard to look at her without feeling the sting of her betrayal, and the healing process became a roller coaster ride of emotions. But amidst the turmoil, there were moments of clarity too. We began to find ways to communicate better, slowly learning to navigate our feelings together. We even began to incorporate some positive rituals into our lives: date nights, open discussions about our days, and taking time to appreciate the little things we had once shared. I still held onto doubts, but I couldn't deny the effort Jessica was putting in. As painful as it was, the therapy sessions highlighted our struggles and revealed the cracks in our marriage, forcing us to confront our issues head-on. At the end of each session, I found myself wondering if we'd ever truly overcome this betrayal, but I also started to hope that maybe we could find a way back. Each other. The road to healing was long, but we were finally on it together. As I reflected on where we stood now, I recognized that forgiveness was not just about words but a series of actions. Whether we could successfully navigate this journey remained uncertain, but I had to believe in the possibility of a brighter future. We were moving forward, step by step, day by day, and that was something. The therapy sessions became a regular part of my life, a new routine I both dreaded and relied upon. Each week brought new challenges, exposing emotions I didn't even know I had. Between the sessions, I tried to maintain a semblance of normalcy in my life, but the shadows of Jessica's infidelity still loomed large. As spring melted into summer, I found myself wrestling with the emotional weight of our situation. Some days I felt hopeful. Other days the anger bubbled to the surface, catching me off guard. I began to notice moments when I'd feel a pang of jealousy at the mere mention of her coworkers or the thought of Jake. It was maddening. I didn't want to feel this way, yet here I was, still haunted by the specter of her betrayal. One evening during a particularly tough session, Dr. Adams asked us to articulate our fears regarding our relationship. I took a deep breath, ready to voice the turmoil within me. My biggest fear is that I'll never be able to trust her again. I worry that every time she leaves the house, I'll wonder if she's with Jake or someone else. Jessica's eyes filled with tears and she looked at me, desperate to convey her remorse. I never wanted to hurt you, Alex. I didn't realize how lonely I had become. It was a weakness and I let it take over. I'm committed to fixing this, I promise. I felt the mix of anger and empathy rising again. I get that, but it's hard for me to forget. I want to believe you, but the memories are still fresh. I can't shake the feeling of betrayal. Dr. Adams nodded, facilitating our discussion. It's natural to feel this way, but healing takes time. What are some steps you both can take to rebuild that trust? The question lingered in the air. Jessica looked thoughtful and then she said, I think I need to be more open, no more secrets. If I feel uncomfortable with something, I'll talk to you about it instead of hiding it. That's a good start, Dr. Adams encouraged. Alex, what about you? I think I need to work on my jealousy, I admitted. I want to be better about trusting her, but it's a struggle. I need to understand that I can't control her actions, only my reactions. Dr. Adams smiled approvingly. That's a healthy approach. Remember, this is a journey, and it's okay to have ups and downs along the way. As the weeks rolled on, we tried to implement these changes. Jessica was more communicative, and I made an effort to voice my insecurities without letting them spiral into accusations. It wasn't easy. I still had days of doubt, but I began to recognize the effort she was making, and slowly I started to let my guard down. One afternoon, she came home from work with an unexpected surprise. I thought we could have a picnic at the park, she said, her eyes shining with excitement. Just the two of us. I was taken aback. It felt like a small step towards reclaiming the joy we once shared. That sounds nice, I replied, trying to match her enthusiasm. We packed a lunch, and as we settled on a blanket under the shade of a large oak tree, I felt a flicker of our past happiness. We laughed, reminisced about our early days together, and for a moment I could almost forget the pain. But then the conversation shifted. I want to talk about Jake, Jessica said, her tone serious. I felt my stomach drop. Now, can't we just enjoy the day? I think it's important. I need to be transparent with you, she insisted. Fine, I replied, bracing myself. I talked to him one last time after our last session to finalize things. I told him I couldn't see him anymore, and I meant it, but I want you to know that it was hard for me to let go. Why? I asked, my voice tinged with hurt. Why was it hard? You said you loved me. I do love you, but I also confused my feelings. I had moments of weakness, and breaking free from it felt daunting. I stared at her, trying to process her words. So you're saying it was easier to choose him than to fight for us? No, that's not it, she insisted, her voice rising. It was just complicated. I felt trapped and didn't know how to express it. Complicated, I repeated, letting the word hang in the air. That's what you call it, after everything. The tension thickened, and for a moment I could see the old patterns creeping back in. But I took a deep breath, reminding myself of the progress we were trying to make. I just want to understand where we stand, Jessica. I'm still figuring that out too, she admitted, her voice softening. But I want you to know I'm committed to this, to us. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, I realized that while we still had challenges ahead, we were laying the groundwork for a new foundation. It was a fragile hope, but it was hope nonetheless. The weeks turned into months, and while the journey wasn't linear, I found myself slowly building trust again. We continued therapy, and I could see the changes in Jessica's demeanor. She was more attentive, more willing to engage in the difficult conversations we had once avoided. But then, just as I felt we were making progress, I received a text that knocked the wind out of me. It was from an unknown number, and the message simply read, "I miss you." My heart raced as I realized it could only be Jake. My pulse pounded in my ears, and I felt the anger bubble back up. I stared at the screen, feeling as if the ground had been pulled out from beneath me. I took a deep breath, trying to remain calm. I didn't want to react impulsively, but I felt a storm brewing inside me. I needed to confront Jessica, but how? Would this send us spiraling back to square one? Or would this be the moment that ultimately defined our path forward? I texted Jessica, asking her to meet me at a nearby cafe. My mind raced, consumed by a whirlwind of emotions. I needed answers, and I needed them now. The cafe buzzed with the hum of chatter and the aroma of freshly brewed coffee as I sat at a small table in the corner, my heart racing. I watched the entrance, waiting for Jessica to arrive while my mind replayed the text from Jake over and over. I felt like a tightrope walker, teetering on the edge of control, caught between curiosity and dread. When Jessica walked in, she looked radiant as always, her smile brightening the room. But as she spotted me, her expression shifted to concern. She approached, and I could see the question in her eyes before she even spoke. "Hey, what's going on?" Sounded urgent. "Sit down," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. I motioned to the chair opposite me. As she sat, I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the conversation that had to happen. "I received a text today," I said, watching her reaction closely. Her brow furrowed as she tried to gauge my mood. "Really? From who?" "From Jake," I replied, and I could see the color drain from her face. It said, "I miss you." The silence that followed felt heavy, as if the air had thickened around us. Jessica blinked, her fingers fidgeting with the edge of the table. "Oh, I didn't think he would reach out again." "Really? You didn't think he would?" I shot back, my anger flaring. "This is exactly what I was afraid of." "What's going on, Jessica?" "Alex, I promise I have cut ties with him. I thought it was over," she said, her voice tinged with desperation. "I don't want him, I want you. But you have to understand how this feels for me. I'm trying to trust you again, and then this happens." My heart was pounding, a mix of betrayal and anger coursing through my veins. I know. I'll text him back right now and tell him to stop," she replied, her hands shaking as she pulled out her phone. I watched her type, feeling the tension rise. She clicked send, and we both sat in silence, the weight of the moment pressing down on us. "There, I told him to leave me alone," she said, her voice trembling. "Is that it? Just like that?" I asked, trying to keep my composure. "What makes me believe this is the end?" She leaned forward, her eyes earnest. "Because I'm here. Alex, I'm here fighting for us. I can't change the past, but I want to build a future with you. I need you to trust me." "Trust is earned, Jessica," I said, the pain and frustration bubbling to the surface. "You can't expect me to just forget everything because you sent a text." "I know that. I'm not asking you to forget. I just need you to see that I'm trying," she pleaded, tears shining in her eyes. "This is hard for me too." I took a moment to collect my thoughts, feeling the emotional turmoil within me. "What do you really want?" I asked, my voice softer now. "Do you want us to work, or do you have feelings for him?" "I want us," she said firmly. "Jake was a mistake, a moment of weakness. I don't want to go back to that. I want to rebuild my life with you." As I looked into her eyes, I felt the flicker of hope ignite again, but it was fragile. "You need to understand that this is a journey, Jessica. It won't happen overnight. I need you to keep proving to me that you're committed." "I promise I will," she replied, her voice steady. "I'll do whatever it takes." The conversation shifted, and we discussed ways to move forward, setting boundaries and expectations together. I suggested regular check-ins to maintain open communication, and she agreed. It felt like a step in the right direction. As we left the cafe, I felt a sense of cautious optimism. The road ahead was still fraught with challenges, and I knew we had a long way to go. but for the first time in weeks, I felt a glimmer of hope for our future together. That evening, as we curled up on the couch with a movie, I felt a warmth between us that had been missing for so long. We laughed and shared stories, and for a moment, the memories of the past faded into the background. I realized that rebuilding trust wouldn't be easy. It would require patience, vulnerability, and commitment from both sides. But as we settled into this new chapter, I felt a determination growing within me. I was willing to fight for our love, to forge a new path together. In the end, I learned that relationships are complex and they can endure even the most painful betrayals if both partners are willing to work through the challenges. Love isn't always perfect, but it can be resilient. As I held Jessica close, I whispered, "Let's take this one day at a time." She nodded, a smile breaking through her tears, and at that moment I felt a renewed sense of hope for what lay ahead. Together, we were ready to face whatever challenges life threw our way, determined to emerge stronger on the other side.